A lot of between season conversations I had were like with friends and stuff were what's going to happen. And throughout the first season, you're sort of wondering, is there going to be a consequence to Jimmying?
You realize that like you just kind of needed key moments to really tell us where they were and where they are now.
Harrison's very funny, kind of a prankster on set. Usually good vibes in those scenes can end up being a lot of fun.
Harrison and Jason, all of those scenes, anything with them just is fantastic. I could watch them all day.
Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com. Of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_U. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by James Renfroe and Sarah Lucky, the editing team behind Apple Plus's Shrinking Season 2. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
I guess we talked a bit before the interview about scenes to talk about, but there is one sort of thing I want to ask, and that is, I guess, dealing with the boop situation from season 1, because it seems like this whole season is about dealing with repercussions. And I'm wondering, coming into the season, how you approached cutting this situation and making sure that it was believable and something that we would go with the characters in terms of how their dynamics sort of play out.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly a lot of mid-season or between season conversations I had were like with friends and stuff were what's going to happen. And throughout the first season, you're sort of wondering, is there going to be a consequence to Jimmying?
Yeah.
You end up in the pilot with Sean getting into that sort of brutal fight, so that ends up as an element of a consequence, and you sort of have I had a curiosity as to whether or not Paul and the sort of overall therapy business would have a consequence. Yeah, if there would be something that would sort of impact them, and would Paul be sort of hurt by Jimmy making these specific choices. So I do like that when this season started, that it was something that like right off the bat we were sort of approaching and dealing with. That you started with the jail sequence, that you had that hike, you sort of got that it was like something that was traumatic for Jimmy and that he was having anxiety about, and I think that was why he had that dream. Easter egg wise, all of the people hiking in that scene are all of his other patients. So there was like, I think as that weighed on him, it was presented in that manner. And then, I think for the benefit of the season, we get a little bit of that relationship with Donnie sort of landscaped a little bit, so that we understand why she might get off, because if there had been a bigger consequence, I think story-wise, it would have been probably harder to be funny. I don't know. They figure out a way to be funny with all of these dramatic things anyway, but I do think it allows us to have some focus on her, and we get to sort of track her storyline with her relationship, Grace, with her relationship with Donnie, and then we pull in the sister in that one episode, and they have there's the montage where Brian recruited all of the people to read these stories. So I think it was nice that it was serviced, but probably for the better that it wasn't.
But also I think it helped Jimmy's story too, by showing like his unconventional ways and maybe some issues that might arise with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason he's not Jimmying at the beginning of the season is he realized that there was this tragic result from the way he was therapizing, I don't know, doing therapy. So he backed off on it, but then I think the combo of, or I think really it came down to Alice saying there was something that changed in you, 6 months ago or whenever the timeline she mentioned, but there was something that changed in you and it brought you back and he related it to Jimmy Yang.
Right.
And that had been the thing that sort of like revitalized him and pulled him out of the funk that he was in. And then as this season progresses, you get more of Jimmy questioning his actual recovery and whether or not he's gotten over the death of his wife. And I think in that 7-8 transition going into the last part of the season, you get to sort of see Jimmy coming to terms with that death and how it relates to him and his ability to do his job, and how it relates how it's affecting his like relationships with the people around him.
My friends and I would make little videos in our backyards, imitations of Indiana Jones and Star Wars. Eventually that need to tell stories became more of a technical interest and an interest in the art. To me, what's exciting is using cinema in its full potential, which is rhythm and sound design and music. Our job is to set up expectations and then deliver on them. I'm Brian Cates, and this is my course in film editing.
What's interesting about that, because your work in 7 sort of leads into 8 in terms of setting us up with what Jimmy sees. And there was somewhere, I don't know who said it, but there was somewhere I read, it was a writer who was like, treat your characters terribly, like constantly put terrible things in front of them and people will be hooked. And so episode 7 ends with him discovering like his best friend, his daughter, and the guy who killed his wife having dinner together. And I'm wondering, like, how did you guys, I guess, what were the discussions in the cutting room about this? What like in revealing this to the audience? Like, was there changes in there? Like, how did that sort of come about in terms of the reveal? Because it is a buildup of Jimmy through the episode and making him feel better and then tearing him down.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the shrinking special.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, we had a new directing EP this season, Randall Winston, and he wanted to make use of movement, camera movement and stuff while some of these more emotional beats were playing out. And so, and he personally loves reflections. So some of it, as I built that sequence, was like, oh, this is where that Jimmy reflection. You can see him in the glass. So as you see them in the background, he's still in the foreground and we're over him. So it's giving us a lot of information that allowed that scene to, that gave that scene some more depth and reality. And then, Jason Segal is very good. So like he doesn't have to say, he sort of talks about it sometimes, but his face acting is like something I think is very proud of, and he does a wonderful job, especially there, of selling this emotion of like feeling this betrayal by those closest to him, by them having this meal with Lewis. And then I don't know, I'll hand off to Sarah here, but I don't know that it was scripted for those elements from 7 to be brought back into 8. I think that was something that they added later. Is that correct?
We kind of, I mean, I had said that you start where we left off, but that was kind of a decision that I made with Kip, one of the producers in the room, how to go from that moment into the past. And we ended up, because it was such kind of like a great thing that I fell upon when he closes his eyes and then opened his eyes. It was kind of stolen moment, but we both agreed that it worked really well, that he kind of closed his eyes. And then when we came out of this whole, like, what happened in the past, he's opening his eyes. And in the past, when he had the big fallout with Alice at the end, he did the same thing, and it kind of was just like the perfect transition, and that kind of was just like something we created and discovered as we were doing it. But I loved how we went back with the train kind of bringing us into the feeling, like hearing the sounds of like the past and them at the subway station. Um, it worked really well. And I love, like you said, like Jason in that scene, like you get everything you need from his face. You don't need him to say anything or anybody to say anything. So,
Well,
and
and that episode takes us into the flashbacks. So I'm
right.
wondering, because this sets up a lot of, I don't want to say contradictions, but like shows us that these characters have changed a lot
Yeah.
in the last several years. So I'm wondering, you know, what came in, like what did you guys work with? How did things change in the
Yeah,
cutting?
it was actually that whole section was kind of a lot longer than it is now. There were, the scenes had a little more detail, and but you realize that like you just kind of needed the key moments to kind of really tell us where they were and where they are now.
Mhm.
So even like the scenes with Lewis and Sarah, his fiance, you just want to get the sense of the cute thing they did at the station, how playful they were, how much in love they were.
Mhm.
You really just wanted to show how Lewis just kind of like any of us who went out to dinner and had a couple drinks, and like how he wasn't like this evil villain that maybe you had in your head the whole time season one, like this wasted person like killed Tia.
Mhm.
And he becomes human. We humanize him, and all of us can relate to that because all of us have been out or had two drinks and like lived around the corner, and it kind of is a little shocking. So it's nice to see him in like a kind of a, because he's always so like brooding and dark in this show, like in a
Yeah.
light sense, and funny and a little charming. And then as we get through the flashback, seeing Liz and Derek and how they took care of Alice, and like really where but Jimmy was, and how dark that was with Alice, but how she found Liz and like them all coming together, and that's really nice. And then seeing how Lewis and Jimmy are so similar when you
Mhm.
see Lewis kind of saying we can't be together anymore to Sarah, and Jimmy not being able to be there for Alice. And
Yeah.
those are two completely separate scenes that I mashed up together because it really does show you like they're similar people. Um, Neither one is a villain. I mean, you go through things and things happen, but I think it's a really nice way to kind of bring everybody together and like how we got where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
most of the changes in 8 felt more dramatic. The ones in 7, the writers do such a great job. So the point there was the contrast between, if you follow the Paul Liz bench scene, and he's saying, in my experience, keeping it a secret never pays off. Like it always comes out. So Liz has that conversation and takes it to Derek, and then confesses, and you see that there's still strife there even with the confession. And then to have that scene then followed by what was like a victory day for Jimmy as he continues to get his streak, and things work out well with Dan, and they do the ocean scene, and like everything is like great. He even gets the hug from him, and he's like, I'm never gonna get the hug. And then to have him at that high, and then to sort of chop him off at the knees, I think it was great storytelling.
Yeah.
But was like in the script, and was just my job to sort of like find a way to make it feel real. The work on that Sarah did on 8 was like,
Yeah, we did a lot of work on 8. 8 changed a lot in the structure, and we montaged the restaurant. And that wasn't originally set to be like that. I mean, the overall story and how the writers put it together is there, and obviously, if you don't have that solid, then it's harder. But yeah, we did have to do some work on the flashback.
what was some of the work? Like you talked about the montage, but
Yeah, the
was
montage with the restaurant, the mashup of the two scenes, they were
Mhm.
separate scenes. There was an idea to like kind of spin off Lewis after Sarah left to go into Jimmy in the room, and just things like that that we just changed. More so, time is an issue. We had to shorten certain things for time, but then also, it was just nice to see the differences and the similarities of where they were in life, Jimmy and Lewis, and then bringing us back to present day. It just worked so well. So it was fun though. It was a lot of work, but it was fun to kind of create this whole past world.
Curious about creating high-quality YouTube videos? Enroll in video editing and production classes at Manhattan Edit Workshop to sharpen your skills and turn a hobby into a career. Start your journey to becoming a pro today.
We've talked a lot about the dark stuff.
Yeah.
Is there a scene that's that was happier that you really found fun to cut or enjoyable?
I mean,
I
I
mean,
like cutting anything with Jimmy and Paul, Harrison
Yeah.
and Jason, all of those scenes, like the boat, the canoe scene, anything
Yeah.
with them just is fantastic.
It
yeah.
feels like they should be an odd couple
Oh my
movie.
God, the hospital with the holding hands and kissing, like I could watch them all day.
It may always there was good additions to the gag reel for any of those scenes. Harrison's very funny.
Very.
The Paul character is great also, but Harrison is like a funny guy, kind of a prankster on set sometimes. So like there's like usually good vibes in those scenes, and can end up being a lot of fun. I find like anything with Brian, Michael Urie, to
Oh,
be
yeah.
like, he's so good.
So good.
And I think, did he get a Critics' Choice?
Did, yeah.
Yeah. So well deserved. And then anything with Jessica, I think, is also like she's like so free and open with her performances that it brings a lot of like good life and energy. There was a scene with her and Liz where Liz visits the office, and then they're like messing around with the table, and then she kicks Keisha out, and then sits down and is like, there was a Gabby's like living out of boxes, so she's got like 8th grade underwear on or something, and there was a laser pointer, and that sequence was like pretty fun to build. There were some cheats in there with some visual effects that sort of made the comedy, I think, work a little bit better, and so that was a lot of fun.
I would say anything also with Gabby and Derek too, like when they first have the meeting and she's carrying all the dildos in the box, like they have great chemistry, and they're so much funny to use from the two of them.
Yeah. Now, I have one last question for you guys. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
We were talking about this a little while ago, but I would say guilty pleasure TV would be Emily in Paris, and a
Yeah.
movie that I watch every year. And I don't know if it's guilty pleasure because I think a lot of people love it, is Love Actually.
Yeah. How about yourself, James?
I would sort of break it down maybe between like who I'm with. My boys, I have two young boys, 8 and 10, and we've been doing the Sharknado series, and I definitely feel guilty about taking pleasure in watching those. And then my wife and I are big Nicolas Cage fans, so whether good or bad, we do find ourselves taking his movies in. Yeah.
There was, my wife got me a shirt once and it said Ridiculous Cage and it had a funny photo of him on it. And it slowly wore out, and then I was like, I gotta get like another one of those. And it turned out he like sued the company, and so he wasn't involved. He was like, I don't want this.
Yeah, I get frightened every once in a while. There's a like standee of him in our garage, and that was gifted to my wife. And I'll walk in, I'll be like, oh God, and then I'll realize it's not a real person. Yeah.
You're like, what's up, Nick?
Yeah, we call him Uncle Nick. We've got like candles. It's too much.
Wow.
Thank you so much for letting me interview today, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. And that's our show for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com, or of course on Instagram at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.